Hi everybody, I apologise for the late upload just because yesterday's video didn't work out and I'm still adjusting to this 2 uploads a week sort of schedule, but I thought to replace that video I would do a review of Nicholas Sparks' The Notebook. I gave it a 5-star rating and it is just a beautiful book. Unfortunately, this video will include spoilers. I will let you know when a spoiler is coming up though, and it's kind of like, just proceed at your own risk. If you do want to watch it and hear my thoughts, feel free to continue watching. However, there will probably be spoilers in this. I'm sorry in advance, so just watch at your own risk. Okay, so I've got my laptop here, so I apologize if I look down. Initially, I was surprised that this is written by a man, not for any like sexist reasons. Men can write romance, like go ahead, you do you, go for it. I'd love to read romance from a man's perspective, especially if it is a man writing it from a man's perspective and it's pure, just because I think it's some insight I'd like to have. Men are stereotyped to not care about romance, when I know for a fact men do care about romance. Like, my boyfriend is very romance heavy. It's something he very much cares for. Same as a lot of my exes. But I was very surprised, mainly just because it is a female dominated genre and also because it was so pure. I have read romance novels that were, in my opinion, more borderline erotica, that were written by men that weren't actually that pure. Yes, there were beautiful, fluffy, cozy romantic scenes. However, there was also explicit language as well as explicit sex scenes, which there aren't any of in this book. So if this is something that does deter you away from a book, explicit sex scenes and language, there really isn't much of that in this book. So if you're after more of a pure romance, true love sort of read, I highly recommend this. This entire book is character-centered. The main 2 characters are the ones that are the most well-rounded. Unfortunately, the characters around them don't have as much dimension to them, but it is kind of expected just because this story is held at a limited perspective. It is written in 3rd person. You do find out that this is actually a story that Noah has written for Ali, of their love story. You find out why in the 3rd part, but I kind of figured it out from already knowing some stuff about the book from people spoiling it. It's hard to escape spoilers. A lot of my friends think I've already read this because it is right up my alley, or think I've watched it. I haven't watched it, so. But it is kind of done in a way that it is forgiving, how like other characters don't have as much depth to them, just because it is limited to Noah's perspective and it is limited to what no one knows. So that is okay and understanding. So it is a character-centered book. Ali and Noah have so much depth, so much characterization, so much planning went into this book. I can definitely tell, like, if I find out that Nicholas Sparks is a pantser, I'd be very surprised, because this didn't seem like a pantsed book at all. It seemed very well laid out. It's actually inspired from his wife's grandparents' love for each other. I don't know if it's inspired from their story at all. From what I've read, it is very loosely based off of it. So I don't know if his wife's grandparents have Alzheimer's. Personally, I'm not too interested in finding out, just because I think that's more personal and they'd probably want to keep it that way, but it is very loosely based off of it. It is still a fictional story. It isn't a memoir though. So very character-centered. I'm rambling, I'm sorry about that. It is also very much story forward. I don't know if that makes sense. I didn't really know how else to explain it as in being story forward. The story does move very well. It flows, it makes sense. None of it is like it's just filler. Everything has a purpose in this book, which I very much enjoyed. The chapters are quite long, so that is something that you might have to think about. The book isn't very long. It's about, how many pages long is it? Let's see. It is about 189 pages long. I could be wrong, I could be up to the acknowledgements page, but it isn't that long. It's only just over 100 pages. So The chapters can be up to, I think there is actually a chapter that is 50 pages long. So if this is something you aren't a fan of, maybe don't pick up this book. That might just not be for you. However, it is done in a way that it's separated by scenes. So if you just want to, and you're a chapter by chapter kind of reader like myself, you can read up to that scene and it's kind of like a chapter in itself, and then you can just like put it away if you're a chapter by chapter reader. Something I noticed with this book is that Nicholas Sparks couldn't decide on whether or not he wanted to use contractions. Contractions are a thing, they are valid, and they are a very useful tool. I noticed quite a lot that he would go pages and pages and pages of no contractions at all to suddenly using contractions for a few paragraphs, and they'd be quite lengthy paragraphs. It's more the fact that, in my opinion, it did flow better with contractions, but he didn't need to use all of the contractions. So I think he wanted to use a bit more of a flowery, kind of elegant, poetic sort of feel about the writing, which I noticed quite a bit. It wasn't exactly poetic though, it kind of bordered onto it. So if you're not interested in poetic writing, this still might be up your alley because it's not entirely poetic. But with the grammar, I've noticed that there was also a lot of commas, way too many commas. It was a bit jarring sometimes in the writing, and there are some where it turned the sentences into more fragments, which fragments aren't very good sentences. From what I remember with writing is that you have to have a subject and a verb, and he'd have a very long sentence, and that would be broken up by too many commas. There were areas where he didn't need a comma. For example, if you're gonna have the word and, you don't need a comma. In fact, if you put a comma there, it is frowned upon. It's not exactly, we won't publish you because of this. It's, you can get away with it, but some people who do know, like myself, I know because I got told that this isn't okay when I was doing my writing course. He did also switch between using past and present tense, which I noticed a lot in romance and YA fiction type of books. This isn't YA type of fiction. Personally, I consider this more new adult to just adult, but I do still think young adults could enjoy and very much appreciate this book. I would have enjoyed it when I was a teenager. I'm 21 now, so I'm not that far off. I'm still like, so I know that I still would have enjoyed it, but it's something that, again, not something that would make I pronounce that very funny. Not something that would stop me from reading this book, but still something I noticed. I did feel as though this story was being told to me rather than me watching it play out, which personally I thought was a bit annoying, but it wasn't enough for me to put the book down. I did understand that, yeah, about over half of this book is a story being told to you. So I didn't write it up on that part, but when it got to the last part where the story had actually ended and it was Noah's life in the present and him visiting Ali, I would prefer to have seen it more played out, if that makes sense. I wanted to read it as it happened, not have it told to me. And I also noticed that there wasn't much dialogue when it became present time. There was a lot more dialogue during the story portion of the book. Alrighty, onto characters. So first up we got Noah. He is a very well written and very well rounded character. He has a lot of depth to him, however he doesn't experience much character development. A lot of character development isn't really shown, but you do know it's there when he is older in his present day, which in still is very good, but I would like to have seen more development in his character, particularly during the story portion. But he's a very content character. He's very patient, very happy with his life. He's a lot happy to live a simple life. He hasn't really been into romance since Ali had moved away. He had had a girlfriend, but it didn't work out between them, understandably. His life pretty much is a elderly neighbor of his dog, his guitar, his books, and his house. And he's very happy with that kind of lifestyle. So I think it's more the fact that he's a very content character, that he doesn't really feel the need to develop or change, which is understandable. Something I very much enjoyed was that he never pushed Ali to do anything she didn't want to do. He always made sure that she was up for it and that she wanted to do it. And usually she was the one suggesting the stuff that they were doing. I liked that he didn't have the alpha male syndrome, which is something that is in so many romance books or erotica books, which is basically just that the guy is, for some reason, this controlling egotistical maniac who thinks that the woman has to do everything he says because he's protecting her, and that's somehow hot and sexy. I don't see it. And then getting like angry and losing control and then having to like be taken down or held to the ground because he's going that crazy without her. I don't like that trope. I'm very glad that it wasn't in this book. When they were apart, he was still able to be himself. Yes, he was sad and he missed her, but he also knew that he could trust her. He never tried to stop her from doing anything. All he wanted was her to be happy and live her fullest life, and he preferred it would be with him, but we're all like that at times. The last part of the story, where he is on the more elderly side, he is still a very patient and caring and loving person. He very much cares for Ali to the point of actually devoting his life to just spending some time with her. He doesn't really talk or hang out with anyone else in their home, like in the elderly home, and instead will wake up, go down to Ali, sit with her and tell her their life story, but tell it to her as if it is a story that he just wrote. He doesn't tell her that she is Ali, that he is Noah, because he hopes in his heart that she'll figure it out on his own. He has made some sacrifices, and one of the sacrifices is not actually telling her what happens anymore, because he used to do that and she would be so sad of not remembering it and basically missing out. He stopped doing it, and he just did what he could so that she could still be happy and they could still be together. And basically it's really sad to read that part, knowing that Noah is deeply in love with this woman, but she just doesn't remember him. Now we got Ali. Ali is also a very well written and very well-rounded character. She experiences more character development than Noah does. Her one is more taking back her life, taking back her choices. She starts to paint again. She does things that she enjoys for. Basically, she craves a more freedom type of lifestyle. She wants to be in a passionate, loving relationship, and she's unsatisfied in her life with and she comes and she visits Noah and reunites with him mainly because she sees his house in the paper. I believe her parents tried to hide it from her in hopes of her not knowing and not going back to him because they weren't entirely sure, but she still sees it and she goes to him. But she lies to Lon and says that she's only going antique shopping before their wedding. He doesn't really think anything of it. He doesn't really know that much about their relationship, like of Ali and Noah. So he's just like, oh yeah, she's just going antique shopping. That I didn't really like, because Lon is actually an alright guy. He didn't really deserve what happened to him. But I can understand Ali feeling trapped and confused and wanting to just know. She didn't go with any intent of getting back together with Noah. She just wanted to see how he was, really. She just wanted to reunite with him. Okay, I don't think she's actually in love with Lon. I think she is lying to herself and telling herself that she's in love with Lon because he has the things that he can offer to her, like security, feeling safe, knowing that they will always have financial stability because he works in law, that kind of stuff, which yes, are important things to have, but you can't just tell yourself that you're in love with this person. It's not actually said that she tells herself this, but in my opinion, it is that she is telling herself. That's just my opinion, sprinkling that in there. Now onto a bit more of a sadder part of Ali's character is her Alzheimer's disease. So yes, she does actually begin to develop Alzheimer's. We don't actually see this in the story portion. We actually see this after Noah finishes reading the story. But basically what happens is that at first she started to just forget her keys. She would randomly forget a neighbor's name that they didn't really associate with him that much, and he didn't really think anything of it. Then he started to find books in the oven, like her keys in the fridge, and then he did start to get worried, but just was thinking maybe she's just a bit more scatterbrained, people forget things. Until one day where she was crying in a car because she was 3 blocks away from her house, but she didn't remember how to get home. And even she said, I think there's something wrong with me, which is very, very sad. And it made my heart crumble knowing that, because Alzheimer's is just a horrible thing that so many people unfortunately have to go through, and it affects literally everybody. It affects the person and then also affects their loved ones. It then goes on to it being kind of more like a, she started to know when it was getting too bad, and she just said to Noah, like she rewrote her will, she wrote everyone letters, and she asked Noah, could you please write our love story? And he tells that to her every morning. He sits with her until she asks him to leave. She basically tries to spend the day with her, which is very, very loving and very caring. I do really feel for Ali because she doesn't actually understand what's going on. Noah doesn't even give her proper answers anymore. He kind of like evades questions but also answering them at the same time. It kind of reminded me of like fairies who can't lie, so they're very wise with their words. He became very monosyllabic when she would ask him questions because he was too afraid of upsetting her, which is very understandable, but in my opinion that is robbing her of some stuff that she really does deserve to know. There will be times where she actually remembers things. She does end up remembering Noah at the end of the book, and they're very confused as to why she can go a day with Noah and then after so long finally remember him. Doctors are completely confused by this and they have no logical idea as to how this is possible, to the point that they think that maybe it's not Alzheimer's, even though every single sign points to Alzheimer's. Whereas the nurses think this is because it's true love and that the power of love is just that powerful. I'm not too sure, I've never actually seen this happen in real life, but that is still a very beautiful thing to be put in this book, and it was just a very loving notion of like true love can beat all, if that makes sense. Unfortunately, due to her Alzheimer's, Ali does see things. She sees these gnomes in her like hospital room and they actually scare her. They just stare at her and she's so terrified of them that she screams and like throws stuff at them. It's just very, very sad. Apparently it happens around like the same time every day, I believe, because when you see the final thing of them spending a day together, he sees it happen. He sees her kind of like go all foggy-eyed, and then she goes and she stares at this area and then she starts to scream at these gnomes and then tells Noah to get out. Like I said earlier, she actually remembers him at the end of the novel, which is very beautiful. So it's their 49th anniversary, and so Noah goes over to her to just see how she is, slip a note underneath her pillow. That's what he did usually. He would like, I believe he would either write a poem or he would get a poem and he'd just slip it underneath her pillow and she'd wake up and she'd have a beautiful note there just waiting for her, and she knew she had an admirer every day. She didn't remember the admirers from the past, but she would know she had an admirer for that day. He just looked at her and he was like, I know that our relationship is over, but I can't help myself from still loving her. And that was just such a difficult thing to read. He goes up to her and then she says his name and then they kiss and then they do get it on. They make love, which we don't see. It just is alluded to, and that is the end of the book. I thought that was such a beautiful way to end the book. I'm so glad that it didn't end with them dying, because that would just be so sad. I don't want to read about them dying. I love to read about their last time together as two people who love each other and have finally remembering him, even if it's just for a moment. I thought that was so beautiful to put that in there, and does actually show the notion of true love beats all, which not entirely sure if that is true. I do believe in true love. I don't believe one true love for all. I believe that you can have true love with people even if it's not romantic love, if that makes sense. Onto their relationship. It's a very pure, very loving, beautiful kind of relationship. There is no controlling aspects. They're better together, but they also work very well apart. At no point do they feel less of themselves when they're apart, but they do yearn for each other, if that makes sense. I apologize for any background sounds. My cats are playing with toys and it's hardwood floor, so there's just going to be sounds. I just thought that was such a beautiful thing to add into this book. I love that they're a power couple. They work well together, but they also can live apart. It's not that they don't love each other. They do love and yearn and remember each other so much, but they still can live their lives. I love that when they first meet and Noah tells Ali that he's not interested in anything serious, and she just fixes him right there. She says the best thing to him on page 73. Fine, but on her way out the door, she turned and said, "But your problem isn't me, or your job, or your freedom, or whatever else you think it is. Your problem is that you're alone. Your father made the Hammond name famous, and you've probably been compared to him all your life. You've never been your own person. A life like that makes you empty inside, and you're looking for someone who will magically fill that void, but no one can do that but you." I really loved that. I loved that she told him exactly what it is and what she sees, and that she's even basically going, that's stupid. this is what we really should be doing, this is why you're like this, and this is why you don't want a serious relationship. And basically in that moment I was like, huh, I like her, let's pursue this. I love that. I loved that that is how it went. I loved that we actually got to see some of, well, we didn't actually see it, but we got told what did happen in kind of like a flashback sort of format in like the story portion. The story portion goes for most of the book, by the way. So it's like, it's very pure in that sense. I very much enjoy that. I love that Ali is a strong woman, and she's a very like particular type of strong woman. She's still very ladylike and very sweet and kind, but she knows when something isn't right. She speaks her mind, she's honest, and she's straightforward, and I love that. Something I didn't really like in this book was that Ali is actually cheating on Lon with Noah, first emotionally and then eventually physically. She doesn't actually go there with that intent. However, you do obviously know that is going to happen, which makes me very sad because Lon is actually a top-notch guy. They're just not right for each other. He's a bit too career focused, and he wants a very uptight kind of lifestyle where she wants to be a bit more free and flowy and in a more passionate relationship where she is in fact put first, which is understandable, but she should have ended it with him before going to Noah, in my opinion. I love that they trust each other. It's very rare to find couples in books that trust each other. Like, we're constantly seeing these horrible toxic relationships being like promoted, particularly to young audiences, and I think that this would be a perfect relationship to show as particularly young women and young men, just so that they do understand what a respectful, healthy relationship looks like. So there is this sort of scene where we don't actually see it as it happens. Lon fights for Ali. As soon as he finds out and connects the dots, he says to his to the people he works for that there is a family issue and he needs to go away immediately. So he puts Ali first for probably the first time in their entire relationship. And then he basically goes all the way down to where she is, goes to the inn and waits for her. The mother finds out about this, goes over and warns them just in time. So Ali goes, okay, yeah, I do need to talk to him. We've been doing this and this isn't right. I have been cheating on him. I need to talk to him. Noah doesn't try to stop her. He talks to her about it, but when she decides that she wants to go through with it, he lets her go. I love that. That is amazing. Like, that's so rare in romance novels now, in any novel for that matter, for that to happen now. We need more chill, accepting, trusting men in these relationships in books, so that way women have a better idea of what men actually are like in relationships. I haven't had an untrusting boyfriend before, so it's very much like, I know for a fact that those like alpha male type of guys are actually very rare to come by. It's very sweet, loving boyfriends are more likely to come by, and it would be nice if we saw that more in books, just because it would spread a more healthy notion as well. I said the word notion so many times, but we don't actually see what happens. We go there, she sees this car, she walks in, and then it ends, and that's where the story ends, like the story. But when it reaches present day, you do eventually find out. Noah actually explains it to us, the readers, as to what actually happened. So she sat down with him and it went for about an hour of him holding her hands, her explaining why it needs to be over, and him actually fighting for her. He didn't get angry, didn't swear or yell, he just sat there and tried to talk her into staying with him, which was very lovely to hear. I would very much have liked to have seen that happen, but I do understand why we didn't get to see it happen, just because Ali didn't actually tell Noah for quite a while what happened. All she did was say that she broke it off with him, and it was difficult for her, understandably so. She spent so much time with him. She thought she was going to marry him, only to find out that she can't. She can't be with him now that she spent this time with Noah. She can't be with him now that she's reunited with him. She needs to be with Noah. So it was good to like know that and be told about that, and I do actually like that it ended on a cliffhanger, because even when that happened, I was like, wait, what? Like, huh? I loved that. I thought that was very well done, and it just rattled my brain. I was so annoyed because that is when I lost my book. Yeah, I need to not lose my books. My conclusion. So, it is a very beautiful, very loving, very romantic, pure type of story. So if that is what you're after, this is probably what you need. It isn't a very long book, like I mentioned before, so if you don't have a lot of time in your hands, I would recommend it, provided you don't mind the longer chapters. Besides the rain and the summer type, you know, the summer like tropes, I'm sure you'll still very much enjoy it. It is a bit of a forbidden relationship kind of trope, which is still, in my opinion, a very popular trope. So it's not a very trope heavy sort of story, and the tropes aren't really the big plot devices. The plot devices are usually just the characters and the relationships, which I very much like. Upon finishing it, I immediately just wanted to start reading it again, but I didn't. I sat down and collected my thoughts and wrote down everything because I was an idiot and didn't annotate it. Will I read a Nicholas Sparks novel again? 100%. It was such a beautiful story and so well written that I love it immensely. The next book I'm hoping to read is Dear John, and I also want to watch the movie The Notebook. I do know that it is a bit different and it is also like sadder from what I've heard, so that's going to be difficult, but I do really want to watch it and I will enjoy it. So that is all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do apologize for my rambling and the fact that this will probably be a lengthy video, but that is all. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe in this very difficult time. Bye guys!